It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
The gloves were off as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton met for their second debate to see who will be the next U.S. president. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu. This is The Heat. It's been a rough few weeks for Donald Trump, widely seen as having lost the first debate. Last Friday saw the release of a decade-old tape in which he used crude language about women. With some prominent supporters now abandoning him, the Republican candidate headed into yesterday's debate with a lot to prove. CCTV's Jim Spellman picks up the story.
It began without a handshake and continued with a series of heated exchanges.
Oh, yeah. What about the other 15,000?
Please allow her to respond. She didn't talk while you talked.
The second debate between Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump came just days after the release of a 2005 tape of Trump making lewd comments about women.
I moved on her, actually. You know, she was down in Palm Beach. I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it. Whoa. I did try and her. She was married.
Trump began with an apology.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people.
But Clinton said the remarks show he is not fit to be president.
And he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is. But I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is.
The two clashed over Syria, with Trump contradicting his running mate, who last week called for U.S. military intervention against Syrian government forces.
Your 2 minutes
I don't like Assad at all, but Assad is killing ISIS. Russia is killing ISIS, and Iran is killing ISIS. And those three have now lined up because of our weak foreign policy.
Clinton says no to U.S. ground forces in Syria, but supports arming Kurdish rebels. A Muslim American asked candidates about Islamophobia in the U.S. Trump repeated his calls for the U.S. to severely limit immigration from Muslim countries. Clinton says that's a mistake.
We are not at war with Islam, and it is a mistake, and it plays into the hands of the terrorists to act as though we are. So I want a country where citizens like you and your family are just as welcome as anyone else.
Clinton's use of a private email server while Secretary of State has dogged her through the campaign. Trump says if he becomes president, he will appoint a special prosecutor to investigate.
You know, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
How's the debate playing out abroad? In Mexico, some doubt it will change many minds.
It's very clear. I don't think either of them pulled any independents or undecided voters their way.
In Hong Kong, there are questions about Trump's character.
He is the man he is, and everything he says, everything he does, whether locker room or in the public or in TV or closed doors, everything a person says and does defines that person.
Trump entered the debate with plummeting poll numbers and some key Republicans pulling support. His performance seems to have at least stopped the bleeding, but the question now is whether key Republicans will remain by his side. With only about 4 weeks before the debate, Trump has a lot of ground to make up to catch Hillary Clinton. Anand?
Thanks, Jim. That's CCTV's Jim Spellman reporting. Okay, let's get to our panel right now. With us here in Washington is Leonard Steinhorn, a political strategist. He teaches public communication at American University. Atiba Madyun is president of the Madyun Group, a government relations firm. Hamoud Salhi serves as Associate Dean and a Professor of Political Science at California State University, Dominguez Hills. He joins us from Los Angeles. And Afshin Molavi is a Senior Fellow at the Johns Hopkins University Foreign Policy Institute and serves as the co-director of Emerge 85 Lab, a new platform for voices from Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Afshin, during that debate, we heard a few rough exchanges there, some bitter exchanges between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. But looking at the debate more broadly, Did it go fine telling us, telling the voting public whom they should vote for?
No, I don't think it did. I mean, in fact, I think ever since American presidential debates, we entered the television era, starting in 1960, I think, every 4 years, debates have been getting dumber and dumber. And, in a sense, what we saw was the reality show debate, on screen. But, and I say this, not with a bit of a smirk. I say this with a sense of tragedy. One of the things that Hillary Clinton was saying about Donald Trump, and one of the things that Donald Trump was saying about Hillary Clinton, was that, each candidate is unfit to serve, right? I think that debate that we saw was unfit for this great country of the United States of America. The campaign we're witnessing is unfit for this great country of the United States of America. And I think that, I fear that we have entered uncharted territory here in the nastiness of the politics here. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from the debate.
Leonard, I guess the point is it may have descended into the realm of reality television, but was there any kind of turning point in this debate? Because whatever happens next, we're going to have a new president.
Well, I think this debate might not matter all that much, given all of the issues surrounding the Donald Trump candidacy and what happened with the hot mic tape that was released beforehand. That was a big cloud over this debate. But where I beg to differ with you a little bit is that I wouldn't put moral equivalency on both of those candidates. Donald Trump really has been the one who has brought this aspect of democracy down. He doesn't develop arguments with any coherence. He shows an incredible lack of substantive knowledge and understanding of the issues. He goes on the attack. His nonverbal communication, interpersonal communication, can be very, very harsh. So I'm not so sure that I would say that the debate or the democracy is sour. I just say, in this particular case, Donald Trump is demeaning it and dumbing it down. And I don't necessarily think Hillary Clinton should be sort of washed over with the same accusation, because when you look at what she did yesterday, she did try to answer those questions. And when she did answer those questions, she did it with a degree of substance and knowledge that is exactly what we want out of our presidential candidates.
No, fair point. Just a quick retort on that. I would also add I think just in general, the way the television media in particular covers these candidates. It's become simply gotcha journalism. I think actually television debates ought to be more boring. They ought to be longer. They ought to be they should not be made for TV spectacles. And we spend 3 or 4 hours with each candidate, and we really get the sense of their vision.
Okay, let's go to Hamoud in Los Angeles. Yeah. Hamoud, these television debates, in fact, a lot of the discussion, a lot of the campaign talk about domestic issues when there's an election. Very rarely do we hear very much about foreign policy issues. We did hear a bit about Syria during this debate. Let's watch a bit of that.
Iran now and Russia are now against us. So she wants to fight. She wants to fight for rebels. There's only one problem. You don't even know who the rebels are.
Mr. Trump,
so
Mr.
what's
Trump,
the purpose?
your 2 minutes
and one thing
is
I have
up.
to say,
Your 2 minutes
I don't
is
like
up.
Assad at all, but Assad is killing ISIS. Russia is killing ISIS, and Iran is killing ISIS. And those three have now lined up because of our weak foreign policy.
I would not use American ground forces in Syria. I think that would be a very serious mistake. I don't think American troops should be holding territory, which is what they would have to do as an occupying force. I do think the use of special forces, which we're using, the use of enablers and trainers in Iraq, which has had some positive effects, are very much in our interests.
Shah Hamoud, was that exchange enlightening? Did we learn any more about what these candidates will do?
Not at all. I think it's a big tragedy at a time when we are witnessing major problems in Syria, a humanitarian case beyond imagination, and the candidate can only talk to them the way they did. Certainly, there are some differences between the two approaches. Hillary Clinton seems to be more, sort of to a large degree, poised a realist, someone who would study, who is thoughtful about it, wants a no-fly zone, for example, but wants also to want to send some troops there. Donald Trump is more about personal issue, personalities, and that kind of worrisome. This simplicity is really sort of beyond explanation. At a time when we're looking for a way out of this crisis or a strategic solution to this problem, after all, the current president has spent every day of his presidency dealing with conflicts. With all of that, we came to that kind of statement is really appalling.
Right, Atiba, just listening to what Hamoud said there, was this a missed opportunity? There are very important issues in this country. I was looking at some of them: job creation, wealth inequality, mass incarceration, the surveillance system that's come into place. We hear nothing about this.
Last night we started off saying that the gloves were off. It felt like the gloves were on last night. They started off going at each other and not answering the questions that the audience had. So we never got to get into those issues, the real issues. When you look at this whole race, I was just thinking, when you look at whether or not it was Reagan against Carter, who was the most exciting candidate? Reagan. When you look at Bush, when he ran for president against Dukakis, same thing. And all the way down the line, till now, Hillary is the most boring candidate that we have in this particular race. The person that seems to be the page turner continues to be Trump. But Trump does not talk about the issues because he doesn't know how to talk about the issues. He's not, we talk about, well, he's an outsider. And there are a lot of people that feel that they can trust him. But do we want an outsider who doesn't understand policy? Do we want an outsider who's going to make decisions that are going to separate us as it relates to our relationships around the world? That's the type of candidate that we have right here with Trump. And so we never get into the real issues.
All right.
But let's also look at that one particular clip in which Donald Trump was talking about Assad and Russia. They are not fighting ISIS. They are fighting the rebels in Syria and propping up the Assad government. So on a basic fundamental fact, because Donald Trump said it, doesn't make it true. And in fact, where is the fact checking on all of this? So I think, the fact that people go out and say things that aren't true in these debates, and this is what worries me more than anything, is that people are actually sort of living in this post-fact world where they're saying things that absolutely aren't true, but if they have good facial expressions or they say it with a calm voice, people pass over it. That wasn't true. He should have been called on it. And that does give us the information you're talking about. Do we want somebody in the White House who doesn't have the substantive knowledge of the issues in the world?
I mean, one another thing that we're not talking about is that when the president says something, the president sets policy. Mm-hmm. So if this is what he's saying and this is what he's going to say as president, he's setting the precedent right there with his language. He's showing us how he's going to be as president. Unfortunately, right now, and this has been throughout, as a Republican, I'll say this, Republicans have always done a good job with the sound bites. That's what he's done. He may not be telling us anything substantive, but he's sticking to the talking points.